Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
It's WMAL, where Washington can talk. Right now it's 6:37. Brian Wilson and Larry O'Connor with you all morning. Coming up at 8:35, Brett Baer from Fox News Channel. And at 7:05, Marjorie Dannenfelser from the Susan B. Anthony list about today's big March for Life. I'm Larry O'Connor, and this is Brian Wilson.
And on the Newsmaker hotline right now is John Lott, who is author of the book More Guns, Less Crime. Yesterday, Senator Dianne Feinstein introduced legislation that would reinstate, if it became the law of the land, the expired federal bans on assault weapons. Mr. Lott, I want to ask you, did it work the first time?
No. I mean, there's been a lot of academic studies, some that were even paid for by the Clinton administration, that have looked at both the ban being put in place to begin with, as well as when it sunsets. And what you find is that most studies find no impact, and it's pretty obvious why that would be the case. And there's a few that find a bad effect, actually, from the assault weapons ban. But you're banning guns based upon how they look rather than how they actually function. You know, no matter how many times they talk about military or military-style weapons here, the AR-15 that's gotten so much attention is essentially on its inside guts in terms of how it actually functions the same as any semi-automatic hunting rifle. It fires the same bullets with the same rapidity, doing the same damage. And if they want to go and talk about banning semi-automatics, that at least would be logical. But, you know, part of the arbitrariness of this proposal is the way they have to go and list 158 guns by name.
Right.
You know, rather than just saying, here are some scientific or measurable things you can look at to determine solely whether these guns are going to be banned or not, we have to give you a list of what's essentially scary-looking guns, even though they can't explain why that list where they have to actually put the names of the guns down, are differ from, let's say, a semi-automatic hunting rifle.
And the major thesis of your book has always been that there is no connection between crime statistics and the number of guns sold in America.
Well, I would argue a little bit differently. I would say that, in fact, there is a relationship, that as you allow individuals to be able to go and defend themselves, they're safer. And anybody who lives
crime goes down,
DC,
right?
Right. Anybody who lives near Washington, D.C., you know, since you all know how murder rates and violent crime rates soared after the 77 gun ban that went in place. But look at what's happened in D.C. since June 2008. In the 4 years since the Supreme Court decision, and the most important part of that was actually something that doesn't get much attention, and that is the elimination of the gun law provisions. I can explain that. But since then, the murder rate in D.C. has gone down by 52%.
Now, sorry, keep going, John.
And the reason why the gun law provisions were so important, it was actually a felony for people to load a long gun. You could own a long gun or a shotgun, but it was a crime for you to actually load it and use it in your self-defense. So the Supreme Court said, look, we can say people have a right to own a gun, but if we make it a crime for you to actually use it, it defeats the whole purpose. And the reason why that's important is that while there's only been a few thousand people that have gone through the gauntlet to go and get a handgun registered to them in D.C., even in 2008, you had about 72,000 individuals, well over 20% of the adult population, who legally owned long guns at that time and now could legally use them for self-defense.
John Lott is our guest, and by the way, his expanded third edition of More Guns, Less Crime is available on Amazon.com, and it is absolutely a must-read and a must-have. You got to keep this with you so you can engage in these conversations that are happening all across the country. John, you wrote in National Review about this 40% thing. The left are claiming, I should say gun control advocates are claiming, that as many as 40% of guns purchased in America are purchased without a background check. That seems like a startling number.
Right. Well, I'm sure that's the reason why the president, the vice president, and all the media keeps on repeating it. I mean, it seems like for 10 days, once a day, at least, you had the New York Times making that reference.
Is it true?
No, it's completely false. It's false on two levels. One is there's a report that was done under the Clinton administration that essentially said 36% of transfers of guns were done without without going through federally licensed dealers. The Obama administration has changed that into 40% of purchases. Now, there's a huge difference between purchases and sales or transfers, because when you actually look at the report, and first of all, it's a survey that was done on 251 people, done between November 1991 and December 1994. So almost all that period covered was done before the Brady Act went into effect.
Right.
It's a small survey looking at before the Brady Act. Gun sales have changed so dramatically, but even if you take out...
Wait, this is a 20-year-old survey they're using?
Right.
This is ridiculous. They quote it as if it's some statistic they get from the FBI.
Right. No, and it's just some new thing that's, sprung up, and it's been around forever. And the problem is most of it's done even before the Brady Act was there. If you were to go...
Right.
And the thing is, here's the deal. Most of these things that Obama and Biden are claiming are sales are transfers. And so, and they're a particular type of transfers. Most of them are inheritances within families and gifts within families. So if the president said, look, we have 36% of these transfers aren't going through background checks because parents are bequeathing their guns to their kids, or because a father is giving a Christmas gift to his son, we need to stop that.
Well,
my guess is it wouldn't have been anywhere near as effective as he was saying. And anyway, I think if you were to kind of look through there, even though most of this data occurred before the Brady Act, before the federal background checks were required, you're talking about a number actually in single digits in terms of transfers that don't involve family or don't involve an FFL.
The thing that concerns me most about what Dianne Feinstein wants is she wants this national registry, and they want to be able to track where the guns are, and that's where a lot of people really get upset about it.
Right.
I would say, well, you don't need to worry because they did such a bang-up job in Fast and Furious. but that aside, that is a troubling development. Do you see that getting any traction? Because I personally don't think any of this is going anywhere.
Right. Well, the background checks that Larry was just asking about, I think they think that will go someplace. But here's the deal about this registration. The claim is that it's an important crime-fighting tool. And in theory, if a gun is registered to somebody and they use it in a crime and they leave it at the crime scene, then in theory you can track the gun
down,
back to the criminal. The problem is one, crime guns are virtually never left at the crime scene. In the few cases they're left at the crime scene, it's because the killer himself is either dead or seriously wounded. And in the few times they're left, they're never registered to the person who committed the crime.
Yeah. Hey,
Canada just got rid of its long gun registry because the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and other police there in Canada could not identify one crime.
John, we're up against it. I'm sorry. No, that's okay. We're up against it. And I wanted to just really quickly, I saw your article in Breitbart News about this guy Gabriel Sherman and how he lied about you in an article about Fox News. What do you think this guy is up to, really quickly?
Well, I can't really, I don't know what's going on in somebody's head. I just know I gave very similar interviews to Eric Wemple at the Washington Post and this guy named Gabe Sherman at New York Magazine, and they just, the same material just turned out completely differently.
Yeah, for a chance to attack Fox News.
All right. We got to leave it right there.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. It's 6:45 on 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL.